Hello, and welcome to the Friday Review of Games. As always, I'm your host, Ian Ni-Lewis, and with me today is our special guest, Steven Spielberg.
Thank you very much. Dan Galpin here, as always, to help out with playing the games basically here online and giving you guys a lot of great feedback. Thanks a lot, as always, for nominating the games to our moderator, and today we are going to be doing driving games, which
Absolutely. Driving games, which actually are some of my favorite games, but I had never really played them on Android. I played Forza, the entire Forza series on my Xbox. Actually started out with Project Gotham Racing.
Absolutely.
Actually did some work on Project Gotham Racing 3. Fixed their sound, fixed the Xbox so it could play their sounds.
Exactly.
So, love these games, lots of great titles, but before we get started, wanted to make some special mentions. Today in the studio with us, we have our new engineer Dan, the other Dan Pham, and producer Rayto Meyer. So can you introduce yourselves, guys?
Hey guys, this is Daniel Pham. Just wanted to say hi.
And this is Rayto, and you may know me better from the Android App Clinic, which is on immediately before, and I'll be keeping an eye on all of the live streams and hopefully passing any questions you have straight on to the guys behind the desk.
Absolutely. Now let's see the producer cam.
That was the idea, I think, was to show the producer cam. All right.
We got the producer cam, guys?
We do. Hit Hangout on the lowest.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
Second from the top.
There you go. No,
Not
not that
one.
No, we're getting good, though.
Absolutely.
Try it again.
Awesome.
That's not it either, but... Yeah,
okay.
One more step. There we go.
All right.
Hey, all right.
Cams. Excellent.
Woohoo! Yep. Everybody was complaining. They said, why don't you hire a professional? And we did. So you can just stop complaining now. From now on, the show is going to be great.
That's right.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead and...
I think I really like that. All right. So,
well, as far as sucking less goes, why don't we go ahead and open up some liquid humor?
Wow, this is a big...
So, yeah. Well, it is a double chocolate stout. So today we're drinking Irondale Double Chocolate Stout from, I have no idea, actually. Swanton Rees, apparently.
Yeah, brewed and bottled by Hermitage Brewing Company in San Jose. So there we are.
Beautiful. So this is local.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Even though it's got a label that's all like, I don't know, Englishy or something.
Absolutely.
Put it on camera.
Well, I will.
Exactly. There we are.
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
All right. Although apparently we are limited in the amount of time we can show what we're drinking, because after a few number of seconds, the man considers it a beer commercial.
I'm still wondering who the man is.
Well, in this case, the man is our boss, Billy.
Oh,
Hi,
okay.
Billy.
Hi, Billy. So,
all right, let's go ahead and talk about some games. What do you want to look at first, Dan?
All right, well, I've got two games queued up here. We're actually going to try a little bit of a different tack this time. We have two Transformer Primes rather than one. And the first game I wanted to look at was Real Racing.
Absolutely. Whoa, you're going to make it hard for anybody to follow this, right?
I know. This game is awesome.
Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at it.
Okay. Let's do career. I'm going to do easy.
All right.
Are you sure you want to be easy? Yes. All right, so let's bring up the camera on that. So here we are with Real Racing, and we'll start off with our club division. This is exactly how you begin the game. And Real Racing is from Fireman Studios down in Australia, and they really have, I think, set the bar for realistic graphics on a racing game.
Right. Camera 2.
And all right. We hit the home key.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, let's see how they recover from that.
Exactly.
See,
it's our
totally
first
planned.
test. Right. Exactly. Or it's possible that it died. Hopefully. Oh. Come on. Fingers crossed. That's what's great about doing a live program. Oh, man. All right, so first thing, checking the license every single time you run.
Yeah.
Oh,
you might not want to do that. And the main reason is because you might be somewhere where you can't get network connectivity. So have a license policy that lets you check the license intermittently. If you don't get it if you don't get contact with the licensed server for a couple times, it's not a big deal. Most people aren't going to be able to contact the licensed server every single time they play.
Yeah, the server managed policy that we have built into the licensed server is actually the way to go. We actually think that it makes a lot of sense so that people can still get their license and yet play the game on a plane or something like that.
Yep.
Let's try quick race instead. Let's see how we do.
Sure. Go easy on the camera too, there, Hotshot.
Exactly. So. And now we're at the exciting loading screen again.
I love this loading screen, man.
It is.
But look at this. It's cool. I mean, obviously, you're always going to have constraints with a mobile device. Mobile devices have power and heat and battery and size constraints that a full console or desktop computer don't have. But with all that considered, it's a really nice looking game. I mean, they've done all of the interstitials and the HUD and everything, just like I remember it on my Xbox. It's great stuff.
And you can actually, one thing that's not easy to figure out is you can actually change the view here. And you'll notice we actually could you actually would think that you would get a higher frame rate when the full HUD was up, but actually you don't. And
yeah, show that HUD again.
So here's our different views. Here's our full screen. There's our front, and there's with the HUD.
Right. And what's the problem here, Dan? Why?
Well, and the theory that I have, and again, I haven't thrown this one through all of my tools, is that in fact, if you notice the border of the HUD actually has some translucency on it. You can see the outside of those windows, and so my theory is that they're actually drawing this HUD last in order to get that a little bit of transparency. And what they probably should be doing is drawing just the translucent parts of the HUD last, and actually drawing the rest of the HUD first, because you'll actually see the frame rate is just killer when it's not there.
Right. They probably can't see it because I don't think we can capture video for YouTube at the highest frame rate this device can put out. But take Dan's word for it, because Dan has sort of a fifth sense when it comes to frame rate.
Yeah, no, it looks amazing, and actually, I've found that I really love playing it this way. I actually get a sense of speed playing it full screen without the HUD. That's
some nice texture down there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You can even see on the road. What I love is that they're using a beautiful job with filtering there, and you can see mip mapping. That texture is just beautifully mip mapped so that when it's close, it does not look blurry, and when it's far away, it is not clogging down the GPU with lots of extra drawing. And so I mean this really is just kind of a boilerplate how to put the game. Even when you see these buildings that we pass by, the textures might be a slightly blurrier, but we have such a great feeling of speed, and the frame rate is high enough that we don't even notice it. And even little things like the effects of the sun flaring on the windshield. I mean, it's just beautifully done. And you can the other optimizations or changes you can make are pretty simple. You can turn on and off the HUD if you want to have just be that much more immersive. Now, it's interesting. This game actually does not have a back button on the screen, which is awesome. You actually have to hit the back key to get here, and then you can actually go and change in the settings to go and say that I don't want to have the heads-up display, and now we can actually go back, and it's all driven using the standard Android navigation system, which is cool. And so now there we have it. We're really just full screen, which is kind of awesome. Like, just being able to get to this view, I think, is super killer. The other thing is that they don't have an accelerator. All we can do is brake. We brake by tapping the screen.
Which is smart. Now, you can actually put it into a mode where you need to both accelerate and brake, which can be nice. Actually, I prefer it that way because I like to slide around corners by just decelerating a bit. But I think they made the right choice as far as making it easy to jump in and play.
Yes.
There's a lot of assists on, which is why Dan is doing so well.
Yes. I'm in easy mode.
Why don't you play this game with the assists off? Show them what it feels like.
Okay.
Just go into your settings and.
Okay, let's go back into settings. And to under
your settings, yeah.
So I can't change career difficulty here. I'd have to restart.
Oh, you'd have to restart the race.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So that was what I was afraid of. But yeah, the game really just have a great sliding scale. But if you want to just jump into it, it's great too. There's nothing that prevents you. And again, as you're looking at this freeze frame, you can just see how high quality that texture, that road texture is.
Yeah, let me take a look at that actually. So this is.
Like you really,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can see
because
that with mapping right there in the center
what's
of the
really
screen.
amazing is that they've actually done a good job of simulating an ISO.
Yes.
I don't think they're actually doing it in ISO because I don't think this hardware can do it
Mm-hmm.
at that level. But yeah, you'll for a lot of mip-map steps, you'll actually see sort of a line. About, let's say, an inch from the bottom of this screen, you'd actually see it turn really blurry or get some, just visual artifacts in general. And
The attention to detail is awesome on this game. So so this game also was originally released as essentially a free demo that was unlockable, and this version is now the premium version, and it's totally worth it. For 99 cents, it's an absolute steal. If you like racing, this game really does have the best visceral feel, I think, of any racing game.
Yeah. So really, I think the only thing we're saying about it is, if you're going to paste a big ass HUD on your screen, do it first so that these parts can Z reject pretty fast. And there are no mobile chips that are really good at overdraw. No Android GPU is going to be happy with tons and tons of overdraw, so just don't do it. The one thing that I'm missing in this game, and it's actually in every game that we've looked at, I'm really missing good damage.
Yeah.
I don't see why not. I think that the hardware is perfectly capable of running a damage model, a simple one. I'm actually, because nobody has it, especially the two Gameloft games I'm looking at, I'm actually wondering if they couldn't get the license.
Well, that's what I was wondering too. You have to get a special damage license, so that is. But yeah, the real cars in this game are beautifully rendered. It is the real car game, the real car racing game on Android.
Yeah, and it is tough.
It is tough, especially if you're not in easy mode. But it is nice, the easy mode, for people who just want to drive. So I'm going to switch over.
Yeah, as a contrast.
Yeah.
This one, I would call this next one Forza 3 meets Mario Kart.
So we're now looking at Asphalt 7. I switched the tablet so we can make a very, very, very fast switch. These are big games. And so I'm gonna let Ian play on this one.
Oh, okay. You're gonna queue up the next one?
Yeah, I'm gonna queue up the next one.
Okay, so for this one, the game mechanics are similar in a lot of ways, and since it's another one of these games where you start with a little bit of money, and that's gonna let you buy a car, and then you're gonna compete in races for more cars and more upgrades.
There we are.
Things like that.
We switched. Now we're really on Asphalt 7 Heat.
Nice.
All right. So. So this is using is not a free title. This is a paid title, but it's a 99-cent title as well, and it is very playable without additional purchases. But it does strongly encourage you to spend additional money on the game.
Well, you're going to grind a lot to get more stars, and in fact, you're going to pay a lot to get more stars too.
Yeah.
So I noticed, for instance, the first thing you get, which is your little tiny Fiat Abarth, I guess. I don't know. I don't actually know how to say that. But this is like the entry-level car for every racing game ever. You want to go up a level to a Range Rover or even just a Mini Cooper S. That's going to cost you 30 stars. Now, 30 stars is like 10 or 15 bucks actually in there.
Is it really? Wow.
It's quite a lot. Let's see. Get more stars. I guess, yeah. There you go. 10 bucks.
Yeah.
Or you get 1 or 2 stars per race. So you can see you're going to grind a lot in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, these are not cheap. So, but aside from that, it's actually really fun. The races themselves are a good time. I'm going to go ahead
and to be honest, I kind of, if you can grind in the game, I think it's actually kind of fun. It does give it sort of an RPG element, and I think that's actually kind of not entirely a bad thing.
Yeah.
In terms of this.
And you've got this interesting thing where I can pay $5,000 for a sponsor, which is a little weird because I thought sponsors.
I pay you. I know.
Okay, fine. They've got some goals here. They've got a little bit of a style system like Project Gotham used to have, where you'll get some extra points for doing things like drifting and getting air. And they also have some really beautiful interstitials.
They absolutely do. Now,
yeah, it's very professional. I mean, it's exactly the kind of thing you'd expect. Now, once again, this is a It's a very simple game. I think it is an auto accelerator. You have to, if you want to brake, you have to hit the screen. But they have a nitro bonus system because, of course they do, right?
Yes. That's the Mario Kart element. And actually, just to point out, there are many control schemes for Asphalt 7.
Yeah.
So you can use tap on the screen, you can use virtual wheel. There's just tons and tons of different ways to control.
But I'll tell you, with especially with the newer Android tablets having a significant improvement in
nice
they
air.
significantly improved their gyroscope and accelerometers, so you can get the attitude sensor to work really well.
Now I'll tell you a couple things about this game. One of this game actually has shortcuts in the races, which are totally fun. There's lots of stuff to find. There's far more than just one route through any of the individual races. My only complaints about this game are really that you'll see that if you look at the quality of it, if you hit the pause key actually, so we can take a look at one of these frames. We can't actually look at the frame, I guess.
Can you pause?
I guess you can't. I thought you could. Anyways.
Here we go.
No.
No, you can't just pause. Though.
Yeah. Anyways, well, if you can see though, if you look down, the quality of the road just is not anywhere near what real racing is putting out. And actually, if you look at the vegetation going by, you can see that the stuff that's near the camera is really pixelated.
Right. But you never notice that because you're going too damn fast.
Exactly. Also, from a frame rate perspective, it is not. We're not getting consistently high frame rates. It's pretty good. I mean, this is definitely. But I think that
it doesn't bother me. And actually, if you play it on, like I played it on the Nexus 7, I never noticed a frame rate problem at all.
Yeah.
I don't have your supernatural skill in judging frame rates.
So it is interesting. So this one I did actually throw into Perf HUD to take a look at it, and I was actually gonna do sort of an interactive Perf HUD view on the show today, but I think
but Dan chickened out.
I did. I chickened out, but partially because it wasn't interesting enough with this sort of gameplay. But one thing that is interesting is you'll on this game you'll notice the cars are drawn last, and so we are, which is a little unfortunate because it is taking up a large chunk of the screen.
For the player's car, I mean, you'd probably want to draw the other things last as well. Of course. This is something that is just, check it out. I'm in adrenaline mode. Knockdown. So adrenaline mode is like you're in Tron mode. You can do no wrong. It's awesome. I have no idea how I even got there. But
wrecked.
See, that's my problem, right? I just wrecked. My car is completely smashed up, but it looks perfect. Why? Why? Did Fiat make you do that?
It's very possible.
So in general, what you want to do is draw your foreground elements first so that you can take advantage of hierarchical Z. And in this case, what you probably want to do, for a racing game is you can assume that the player's car is always going to be in the foreground. Anything else is probably not worth it. The other cars are almost never in the foreground.
Yeah. And you really see when you see the vegetation on the left-hand side of the screen that we're going on. That's where you really see the quality.
Yeah, I think that's a textile density issue.
It is.
They just aren't loading up big enough textures. Although they have a lot of varied textures.
They do.
And for the areas of the track that are further away, it's actually very well done.
Yes, absolutely. I just think there's probably one level of mapping that's missing.
Right.
And but
knowing the game development process, I wouldn't be surprised if that level was created and then thrown away at the last minute in order to.
Very possible, and you can also see there is a bit of pop-up going on. If you look at it.
Yeah, I did notice some pop-up, and that's an issue. Especially, it's actually a little bit surprising considering, for instance, this particular GPU is really excellent at geometry.
Yes.
Compared to its pixel performance, so, you actually probably get more out of. Pushing your far Z plane out a little bit, but that's not going to be the right choice for every.
Well, and also that only really is good if you're drawing in the reverse draw order. If you're drawing in order, you're going by pushing your Z plane out, you're still going to have some pretty big performance problems.
Oh, if you're going back to front.
Yeah, if you're going back,
which you should never do, right? I mean,
exactly.
Drawing your stuff back to front is always the wrong choice unless you have to do alpha. What you should be doing is, just like these guys here, you should be drawing that alpha area last.
Absolutely. So that's just basically something that everyone needs to look at. That being said, this game is totally fun, and it is beautiful looking.
It's a kick.
I just want to see it that much better.
I really do too, and I would love to see more, some more collisions, some more particles. My guess is that the very top end of Android devices, especially tablets, could handle more than what we're seeing here. I would pay extra to get, let's say, a Tegra optimized version of this or a tablet optimized version of this to play around with, because I think this game could be even cooler than it is. Totally.
And interestingly enough, hitting the back key multiple times just gets us out to the menu, kind of the way we'd like. They've done a good job of making it navigate.
The navigation is great.
And boom,
Perfect.
We're back out. So that's that. Let me see if now I was going to try to queue up the next game on this tablet, and we'll see whether I actually managed to successfully do that.
Before we start the next game, I think producer Reto has something to say.
Exactly. He is on the screen. So
exactly. Thanks, guys. So there's a couple of comments on YouTube and on the G Plus stream. So Leaf points out that Asphalt 7 does notification spam after not playing it for a few days.
How many people don't do notification spam?
Now the real question on this actually is whether or not you can actually turn off notifications.
Right.
And by the way, but GameLoft assures me that if the game is actually intended to be playable offline, if for some reason it is you saw that network error has occurred, we try cancel. They say that's actually a bug.
So what we're asking people to do now is, we understand that some people like notifications. We don't know who those people are. But apparently some people do like notifications. What we want to do is make sure that users who don't want notifications, or even users who do want notifications, they don't want all of them, have the ability to control that. Now, of course, we added new features to Jelly Bean to make it easier to control the kinds of notifications that you get from different apps. But that's sort of an all or nothing thing. You can say this app is never allowed to send me notifications, or this app is allowed. Yeah. Now, me personally, I don't mind being told, for instance, that there is a massive sale on some in-app item of a game I like. But I do hate, personally, I do hate those notifications that are like, you haven't played me in a while, why don't you come back? I mean, if I wanted somebody whining at me about coming to play, I'd play GTA 4.
Yeah, no, exactly. And actually, one of the things I was looking for, and I didn't actually check this game before we started, and I was looking to see if there was a way to disable that within the game. Doesn't look like there is. We strongly encourage developers to make that something they can turn off, and because a lot of users prefer it. Now, on one of the other GameLoft games, if you turn off notifications, every single time you start up the game, it pops up a dialogue and says, "Hey, you realize you've turned off notifications. Would you like to turn them on?"
That's like iTunes bad. Hey, I noticed I'm not your default game player for this machine. Would you like to change that? Come on.
So
there will come a day when those people will be the first up against the wall, but even before that, there will come a day when that is no longer considered feature worthy.
Yeah, we really want to make sure the user experience is and addressing the user concerns are the number one priority for developers. And we understand that notifications are useful. There's a lot of game players who actually really like them. And certainly on a lot of the games where resource management is an issue, or their daily bonuses, that's really awesome. Playing Dungeon Hunter, knowing, hey man, there's like, if I play today, I have an opportunity to get 5,000 gold for doing this. That's kind of cool, as long as I can turn it off.
Right.
And so we do have the other game. Do we want to go on?
Well,
Are there other questions?
Maybe had one more question.
There's one more. So this is an actual question, programming question from Alex on G Plus stream, and he says, you guys always say to pay attention to the resolution of the art assets within games so that they don't look blurry or overstretched. He'd like to know what you think about pixel art style of graphics. Do you think it's okay to do all the art on a canvas of, say, 400 by 240 height with pixel art style? He's asking because the pixel art looks nice when stretched, but it's all messed up when shrunken, and that goes against the standard best practices on game art, where you obviously have high-res assets and then shrink them down. Although making two separate groups of artwork, both big and small, seems to be a better option, it's not practical because it's going to take too many resources.
Well, remember that the reason it looks bad when it's shrunk is because we're doing the scaling very quickly. And it's usually, like for instance, OpenGL just implements a bilinear filtering, which isn't very good. Now, if you run your art through something like Photoshop, and it does a land coast filter on it, you're going to get art that looks pretty much great.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't worry too much about that. You actually can if you go into Bitmap Factory, you can set the options for higher quality scaling as well within the actual scaling of the bitmaps, and that may help you out as well. But the truth is, my feeling is high resolution pixel art looks amazing, and the games we saw. If you looked at the last week's show, we were doing tower defense games. We saw some amazing high res pixel art that looked mind-blowingly good on these devices, and actually scale down reasonably well. And it's so I think it comes down to art design and style. There definitely are outline pixel art really doesn't scale very well. If you're trying to have lots and lots of really delicate line details, those are going to get lost a lot of the time.
You need to do that.
But
and you know who does actually very careful line drawing is Rovio. And
Absolutely.
they actually put a lot of effort into making sure that at every single resolution, the black outline around the birds is exactly 1 pixel wide.
Yeah, and they're very, very good about that, and so I think it's certainly possible. It's more of an art design question, I think, than a technical question when it comes to that.
I think a lot of people will do something in pixel art thinking that that's actually going to be easier, and it's not. Doing pixel art well and making it look great on a modern device and also appealing to modern users is actually really tough, because you want it to be old school, but you don't actually want it to be old school.
Yeah.
You want it to be evocative rather than representative of your limitations.
Absolutely, but yeah, I mean, we certainly love pixel art. We've given major thumbs up to a lot of pixel art titles in terms of the presentation, and I think the real key thing is just, again, like anything else, it all depends on the quality of your artist as much as anything else, and your design. And
so, producer Reito, I have to ask, is that HPC 2000 guy on the live chat?
I haven't seen any questions from him yet. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was going to ask a question about OpenGL. I told him I'd answer it, but I'm not going to answer it if he's not watching, because come on.
Exactly.
I will keep an eye out. I will let you know if he
Sounds
tunes
good.
in.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next game.
All right, so our next game isn't really a driving game. It would be...
Is there driving in this game?
But there is driving.
There's a lot of driving.
Isn't really a racing game, I should say. It is a driving game.
We didn't say racing. We said driving.
Did we?
Yes.
Okay.
And the only thing that we put off limits was golf, as I recall.
That is true. We said that it was not that kind of driving. So here we are. It is GTA. They've done a great job of bringing it to Android. It controls very, very well. I actually really like the fact that the default set of controls is actually tapping the screen rather than accelerometer. I think it works really well for the kind of arcadey style of driving that is in the game. And so, since it is a driving game, we're going to hit the car. Now, there are a lot of on-screen buttons in this game, and I would say a lot of that is because it wasn't really designed for this kind of system. I think if you were designing it today, you would not have nearly as many button actions as this game has.
This is definitely more of a port than a remix. I think it's not. It's not really.
Wow, am I driving badly?
Yeah, it's not really reimagined for tablet. It's just totally ported. So what this plays awesomely with is like a Nikos controller or an Xbox 360 controller.
Yeah, if you have
into the USB part,
and it's great. They support that if you're on an Android 3.x device, or you're on something like the Xperia Play 3.x or higher device. They they really do a great job of making sure those are there for you guys. But other than that, they've done a very good job of porting the game and the graphics over.
Where I played this was I met with the WikiPad guys.
Oh yeah,
you might have seen WikiPad online. They were at GDC, and they handed me a prototype, and it was playing GTA 3, and I'm like, wow, it's a completely new experience to be able to play that on tablet with a controller that's built in. So I'm hoping that we see more of those. And there's several people. WikiPad, Nikos, there's one other that I can't remember.
Yeah, Moga is also doing it. Yeah, it's got a pretty cool controller. And
of course, we support USB controllers, basically any USB controller that Linux supports.
Yeah, and Bluetooth as well, USB and Bluetooth controllers. So, there's really going to be a lot of choice out there. Let's run into a few more trees here in Grand Theft Auto. So what more to say about this other than it's a port done well? I would love to see a more native version designed for touch controls. I think that you could go take it really, really far, but they've done about as good a job as I think you'd expect to do, given where they started with a fairly complicated joystick interface. Nice, my car's on fire, and I'm in the first Omen training mission.
This is just it's a fun game. What more to say?
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, let's not waste any more time. They did a good job. Oh, but there is actually one thing that's unique about this game. If they still have it, they still have the persistent notification.
Yes, they do something kind of wacky with that. So if we go to the home screen, you'll see that it actually lets you know whether it's still running, and allows you to get back to the game right away. I don't know how exactly I feel about this, because things do run in the background, and that's the expectation.
I am so torn about this, because on the one hand, it violates a lot of the philosophy that we have around Android. On the other hand, it's done for such a good reason, because basically everything that we've done around Android is for a completely different use case.
Yes.
And the use case of having something that is really, really big and really, really expensive to initialize, but also something that you might want to interrupt every now and then to, let's say, get a phone call, it's tough. So they've done something interesting. They basically say, okay, you know what, we're going to run all the time, but instead of just doing that, which is horrible, they put up a persistent notification that says, essentially,
our process is still in memory.
Yeah, GTA 3 is sitting here taking up resources and draining your battery so that you can go back to it fast. You want it to stop that?
Yeah, it is actually not draining your battery, but it is still resident in memory. So it doesn't actually keep the game running. The threads
the threads are stopped, but it will end up making things harder for you. There will be more swapping out.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Android will kill the process if you try to run too much stuff. I mean, we should actually just try that. Let's try to launch Real Racing and see what happens. I'm testing fate here. We're obviously running two enormous titles. What should happen is we should actually see GTA get kicked out of memory. Always good to do these things live.
Nice. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
But my point is that you're right that it's not consuming CPU, but it is going to consume the battery, because what's going to happen is that smaller apps are going to cycle in and out faster.
Yes. Yeah, and the thing is, once it gets kicked out, it should just be kicked out. It doesn't get kicked back in unless they're actually running a service, and hopefully they're not doing that.
They are running a service, and they've got a persistent notification, so it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, I actually haven't.
You're going to have to go out of here and then go back into GTA and see if it
well, you see the notification is still there. So
that's true, but that doesn't really mean anything, because all that means is their service is still alive. It doesn't necessarily mean their main process.
Yeah, let's take a look and see what happens. Boom, there we are. So we had this test has a lot of RAM.
True.
Again, it is possible to swap between two rather large games. I don't think I want to push it and actually swap between more than that. But there we are with Real Racing as well. So awesome, nice multitasking going on there.
Couple of quick points from YouTube. Crispy Core wants to know if you can try and see if the tilt controls work while driving. He asked that just a couple of minutes ago, so I'm guessing that's for GTA.
The tilt controls for GTA.
There seems to be a lot of problems with that. Apparently.
I think so. I think that there may be an issue, and as I recall, this is one of those games that actually. Has, I think, accelerometer issues. Let's take a look. So let's turn accelerometer on, and let's take analog.
Use analog steering, yeah.
Yeah, use analog steering.
Turn that on. Okay.
Okay, and let's take a look. As I recall, this may have been one of those games that actually does not correctly look at the default orientation when interpreting the accelerometer. But I think, as I recall, and it's been a while, I think they do it correctly for tablets, and they may not do it correctly for.
So they may actually be sensing the type of device instead of. So what'll happen is the orientation is always done with respect to a default orientation of the device. In other words, which orientation the home screen expects to display in, and that's not always what the game expects. Ironically, this isn't very difficult to deal with. Where people get into trouble is when they try to figure out what the default orientation is, and then figure out what the accelerometer is telling them, rather than just believing the quaternion that they can get from the accelerometer.
Yeah,
system.
the quaternion is actually always going to be correct, and that's really the key here. But anyways, the tilt is working fine here. We should try it on a phone device and see whether it's also handling that correctly. I shouldn't say phone. What I should say is a portrait default device. Now, the real question is what happens on Nexus 7 here, and so we can. I think I have it on this guy.
Well,
Dan,
Dan,
we'll cue that up and see if there's another question while we're doing that.
So while Dan's getting that going, HPC 2000 is in fact here, so he would love to hear the answer to his question.
Okay,
so
I believe the question was about how... Oh, boo.
Whoa.
Look at that. I downloaded all these files last night. At least I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. So HPC 2000 asked, how easy is it to take an OpenGLES game that's made for some other system? He named a system. I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
But whatever. You use what you want. If you want to port from another system, that's an interesting question. I'll tell the truth. It's something that I think we have mixed feelings about, and when I say we, I mean the Android organization in general. We want people to bring all of the best content on Android. At the same time, we don't want to just see random crummy ports. We want to see things that are built for Android and for its unique abilities. So that said, it's not very difficult to port an OpenGLES game that's written in C to Android. There are some issues. A lot of people think that since Android is Linux, it should be very easy to port any piece of Linux software. And that's not entirely true, because Android, like all other Linux systems, is built out of a lot of different components, and there's some things you can pick and choose in terms of the libraries and tool chains. We have a specific C runtime that we use called Bionic that a lot of other people don't use. And all of this adds up to more hassle. Now, normally for a Linux system, this isn't a hassle because you use something like APT or Mac ports or one of these things that compiles everything and runs through a bunch of compatibility scripts. And if you've ever used a port system, you know that there's like a million different tests to figure out where your C runtime lives and where your compiler lives and all these other things. Android, of course, doesn't do that. We distribute binaries to the phone, or to the device. So you are not able to count on all of the things that your desktop Linux system has, or even all of the things that are in the Android open source project right now. What we do instead is we release something called the NDK, the Native Development Kit. And that is, there's a lot of things in the NDK, but the real core of it, the irreplaceable piece of it, is a set of headers that form a contract that Google has decided we will always fulfill.
Yeah, it has an ABI, an application binary interface, and the key thing about that is that for your OpenGL calls, those OpenGL calls will be essentially identical because OpenGL is a standard. It actually provides a contracted ABI itself, and we're adhering to that contract. So from an OpenGL perspective, all the OpenGL code should port over incredibly easily. Obviously, and if you're taking advantage of any architecture-specific implementation details, especially extensions, those will have to be looked at. But the vast majority of the OpenGL code will run absolutely identically on both platforms.
You will need to be aware of one thing, though, which is that because Android is an open system with a huge number of OEMs, you can't make as many assumptions about the GPU hardware as you can with some other systems.
Absolutely.
So even though the OpenGL ABI is standard, some of the extensions that you may have come to rely on, or possibly some of the behaviors or even bugs that you may rely on one system, are not necessarily going to be the same on other systems. A good example of that is that PVR GPUs do geometry sorting, and they're almost completely insensitive to the way you submit geometry, but they are very sensitive to how many state transitions you do.
Yes.
Whereas Tegra GPUs are almost exactly the opposite. They change state very fast, but you want to always sort front to back.
Exactly, and so the real key, and that's only one issue. There's also things like if you want to use texture compression, there is not a standard
their own
high performance one to use on Android. There's also there are also issues in terms of how you should write your shaders. and making sure that you're really querying very carefully. Also making sure that you do test those shaders on a variety of GPUs, because you will see different performance cliffs from device to device. That being said, from a coding perspective, your code is going to go over. What you really have to look at is audio, because the audio standards are very, very different. You're going to look at touch and events, which are very, very different. Networking, actually, if you're not using SSL, you can just use sockets. And so your socket code will come over pretty much straight, to be honest. So there's you do get a lot. You can actually use even threading. You can, if you're using standard P threads, as long as you're not relying on making calls back into the Dalvik virtual machine, you can actually use those very easily, or you can actually tie those back into Dalvik threads. And there's actually a really nice library that NVIDIA has provided for doing that. So there really are a lot of things you can do, and really one of the main reasons we do the NDK is to allow people to take advantage of tested code sections that code libraries that you have written for another platform. So from that perspective, that plus the standard APIs do provide a really nice basis, especially for games. Where it gets more challenging is when you want to take advantage of a lot of the Android standard UI patterns. And those are, there's a lot of useful stuff in there, even if it comes to things like font rendering. Database storage isn't there. So if you want to use databases, you're going to have to make a call through JNI to get.
Oh, no. You're going to get to make a call through JNI.
That's right.
Because remember, the Java interfaces in Android are very, very easy to use compared to C and C++. There's a lot fewer ways to shoot yourself in the foot, and you'll end up writing a lot less code. A good example of this is when you're doing your gameplay. Every large-scale C++ project I've worked on has its own resource management and reflection system, which of course is built into Dalvik and into the Java framework. So you can actually save yourself a lot of time, especially when you're dealing with platform-specific things, but even when you're not, by going to Dalvik or another virtual machine.
Absolutely, and there's plenty of places, even in a game, where it makes a lot of sense to take advantage of Android framework resources. Things like notifications, for example. Networking. It's just nice to take advantage of the built-in HTTP stack, built-in SSL implementation, all that kind of stuff. So there is a bunch of stuff that it does make sense to actually move code over to the Dalvik virtual machine. But that being said, it's for your core code, especially things like physics engines that may be written entirely in native code, things like Box2D. There's really no reason not to just use that code as it is if it's a well-tested bit of code.
Absolutely. Okay, I think that's enough on that. Producer Reto, are there any more questions? Okay.
Excellent. That was
all right.
Well done on the producer cam. We're getting the hang of that today. That's awesome.
Good job.
Yeah.
Now, we're running a little low on time, but something occurs to me, which is that we did not actually go in order of what people voted on today.
That is true.
We sort of went in order of what we personally thought was cool, especially in order of these big profitable games,
yes.
Which I think makes us look a lot like tools of the game oligopoly establishment.
Well, and I will say that all of these games, really are fun. Like these are
absolutely,
they're beautiful. They make.
Again, we don't want to be tools.
No, that's true. So. And I would have added Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, by the way, to this list had I been a tool, because I actually love Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. I have ever since it came out.
I don't think it's a tool thing.
And I didn't nominate it to the list because there were so many other big games on the list already.
Well, so my main point is we need to look at Tractor Digger.
Well, so Tractor Digger is not actually a racing game. I'm going to bring it up just very, very quickly.
It was voted number one.
It was voted number one, and it is built. It is built using And Engine, and it is.
By the way, you know who else is a tool? Anybody who watches this show and doesn't vote. Vote for stuff.
So this is actually a puzzle game, and your goal is to move things into the tractor. You've got a dual joystick control, and then we can actually take this stuff and move it into this dumpster here. And it's actually pretty cool. It is not racing game.
We didn't say racing game. We said driving game.
It is sort of.
Are you driving a tractor?
Yes.
I think you're driving a tractor.
So
now, for some reason, Dan is snapping his fingers at it.
Because
why.
the reason why is that I don't have this tablet plugged in. So let's actually show you what I was doing rather than have me just looking down.
See, that's why we look at the monitor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why we have. Yeah, that's a good point. So, anyways, it's backwards though. That's really hard. Never mind.
Maybe just glance at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, so we can actually take advantage of physics here to scoop up the rock into our little tractor, and then we can actually flip it all the way around to the other side in order to dump it back into the dumpster. But it is a puzzle game, and it's cool. You're driving a tractor, and it's something I haven't seen before. It is an end engine game, which is always nice to see. If you haven't actually used end engine before, it is a really nice 2D game development platform written for Android. We actually had them showing off the tools chain at Google I/O this year, and it really does looks nice. And they're doing a lot of investment in it, which is exciting. Oh, by the way, you're not trying to get the boulders into the truck. So
I did a good job of it, though.
You did. No, you're the controls. The controls work well. There's definitely some parts of this game where I want to see higher resolution artwork. Some more work done on some of the textures. So that it looks less this sort of repeating pattern that you're seeing there at the bottom. It just screams, I'm tiling something.
Right. The right way to do that, by the way, is to create 3 or 4 random textures and just randomize them.
Yes.
For a texture like this, you can use. There's actually some Photoshop plugins that do this.
Yeah.
You get something that has like 4 or 5 different textures, but they all tile seamlessly along the edges, and then you just pick them at random, and it actually looks really good.
Yeah, it really does. And the same thing I would say with the grass texture. It's just like tile.
Exactly.
I would love to see a little bit of work, because there's so much work that actually went into the vehicles in this game.
Yeah, they're cool. And you know what? I dig the background too, even though it's just a photo. It's nice that it's like out of focus. It's got that depth of field effect to it. Good job there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's move on.
Again, not a racing game. Another one that's in the category of someone smaller games is drag racing from Nitro Nation, and
I didn't like this game.
This game is kind of fun, but it really just seemed to be an exercise in trying to end up getting me to buy stuff, which was a little unfortunate. It's like what I found was that pretty much no matter how well I did in the game, if I did not have a car that was good enough, and this was not an example of that, I was just going to lose. Mostly because there's just kind of minimal controls here. And I actually played this game not particularly well. I should actually be.
I was gonna say,
shifting, so you get good shift.
If you shift like a moron, you're not gonna get anything out of this, right?
But even if you shift really, really well, there's a point in which your car just isn't good enough, and you have to buy a new car, and the only way to buy a new car is to get respect, and it's very challenging to get respect within the game without actually paying money. And I kind of wish the game had sort of a deeper grind factor. Maybe it's there, and I just didn't see it. In my playing of the game. That being said, the game plays well. It looks pretty good. A little tiny bit blurry here on the size of a Transformer Prime.
It's definitely a button masher.
It's I wouldn't even say
it's
I wouldn't even call it a masher.
Pavlovian. It shows you a little upshift thing, and then you press the button, and it says "Good job."
Exactly.
Good job.
So it's pretty limited, but I wanted to at least bring it up. Again, if you like this kind of game, it seems to be a pretty good version of an entrant into that
I've
genre.
Seen better. I really have, but not on tablet.
Exactly. Now, another completely different kind of racing game is Reckless Getaway.
This is a great game. I love this.
This is super fun. And it actually has a cute little story behind it that you are trying to get away. Let's actually do
recklessly.
Yeah. And even little details like
that. Please wait,
robbery in progress. I love the money flying out of your car. There's all sorts of cool jumps you can take. There is just tons and tons and tons of stuff to do in this game.
Now, I would have loved to have a little bit more control over. Maybe that's just me, because I'm old and I don't have the greatest reflexes. But I felt like this control scheme was actually really difficult to manage. I would have actually liked some really sensitive tilt controls. which is odd because, as you know, I hate tilt controls. But
yeah, driving games are one of the few places in which I
Exactly.
find that tilt controls actually are not so bad, and I often prefer them.
especially if they're reasonably sensitive.
But this game is really well done, and it's I love this. I love the perspective. Again, we took a jump there.
And all the background work they've done. I mean, it's a professional title. I mean, there's no question about that.
Absolutely, and as I said, I was glad to see this up there. This game hasn't gotten a lot of love recently, and I think it's a really well done title that does something substantially different in this genre. There's really three different kinds of games that we see really commonly in the genre. We see sort of slot racing games, which are over the head, where you see a large percentage of the track. We see the more traditional driving games, and then this is a perspective we don't see nearly as much, which is kind of reminiscent of the perspective from like Spy Hunter, the original
That is
overhead
what this reminds me of.
overhead
Spy
racing
Hunter, yeah.
overhead racing game, and it's awesome. So I definitely here's, by the way, an example of a developer who just did not know what to do with the back key. Here we are. We've got a screen that says play again and continue, and they're like, so what do we do here with the back key? Well, actually, in this particular case, play again or continue, there is actually a third option, which is which would be exit to the main menu, and that hitting the back key actually should exit you back here. There's no reason why it needs to be play and continue. This is sort of a design. So they made the back key do nothing. That's bad. It should always do something, especially at the end of the game when you might just want to exit and switch game modes. And instead
the right
you
way to
have to target the continue button, which is really unfortunate.
Remember, the back button does two things. It moves you back to the previous activity, or it dismisses dialogues. So if you're saying to yourself, wow, what I'm looking at here has no meaningful back thing, maybe it's because you need to think of it more as a dismissing rather than a moving.
Continue actually does not. When I saw continue, what does continue mean? I had no idea, and then I realized what continue actually does is take you back to the selection screen. So continue is really doesn't really make much sense there.
Certainly there are some places where we stretch a little bit, but you know what? Suck it up. Android has a back button, and people expect to be able to use it.
So I just wanted to bring up Tiny Little Racing.
You know what? We were going to look at this a while ago,
and then didn't.
And we didn't.
So first of all,
I even said, actually, wow, we really loved this, and it turned out I was wrong. It turned out that actually it was a different game with a really, really similar name that we really, really loved. But this is still a good game.
So let's talk about it. First of all, we see this.
Oh,
don't ever do this.
Yeah.
Don't ever do this because
at least autofill. Come on.
Well, it's not just that. One is that I'm not using the standard Android keyboard.
So
the question is, I'm going to stick this in the dock now, and the keyboard doesn't work.
Camera two.
Go to switch to camera two.
Camera two.
No, not there.
All right. Okay. Now look at what poor Dan is trying to do here.
Yeah, I just quit the game, but I was trying to type my name, and I can't type on the keyboard.
Point is, he's just amazingly frustrated with this whole thing.
Because we're not using one of the default input methods of Android, so I can't actually type my name using the keyboard that's in front of me. So this is all. So don't use your own input method as a general rule, even though it looks really cool and you can put Comic Sans on there, which also I say never use Comic Sans, but that's a different question.
Yeah. Did you not get the meme?
So that's one thing. This game is fun. I definitely want to see some higher resolution graphics. Everything here is really, really blurry.
Yeah, this game wasn't really built for a tablet.
No.
Also, the models are really low res. So you get the feeling that maybe this was tuned for a much less capable device, and that's fine. But what you might want to do, and this is just a general game design idea, in general, it's not very difficult to make a model that's very high polygon count. I mean, the hard part is reducing it to a low polygon count.
Yeah.
So if you keep your sources and just, every now and then when the state of technology gets there, put some better models in your game.
Yeah. Actually, to be honest, for me, the models, I think the car models are really good. It's the rest of everything else that I want to see.
No, the car models are attractive. My point is they're low poly.
Yeah, and they don't really look like anything else in the game. And I think it's cute, some of the design elements. But I would love to see some even if the backgrounds are going to look like that, it'd be kind of cool if they were a little bit soft focus. that kind of thing.
Now let's just move to camera 2 really quick. You'll notice that my excessively large hands still have to kind of reach to get the
we're losing HDMI
that left
here.
and right button there. I mean, it really is a stretch.
This is an example of buttons that are not scaled based upon the pixel density of the screen. You know, they're looking at they're stretched based upon the screen size, and it's the kind of thing. So we have two options here. One is we can look at pixel density. That helps a little bit. The other thing is we can actually have a separate tablet layout that would help even more.
Yeah, remember that Android has some really nice features for putting together layouts for different screens, and a lot of game developers say, well, that doesn't affect me at all because I'm not making views and I'm not using horizontal layout or anything. But you know what? You don't have to use that for just views or dialogue designs or UI designs. What you can do is put constant values in there and then pull those out based on the resource ID, and you'll get the different values based on which screen size you're on, or whatever you filtered on.
Absolutely, and again, you can do a couple things. One is you can actually get the pixel density, and you can just imply that to what you're doing in OpenGL, so that you're actually getting something that's the correct physical size, which is really important because what you want to make sure is also if this screen were very, very small, you'd still want those things to be very, very large.
Right.
And this thing looks like it's just stretching based upon the size of the screen. So that's definitely one thing. Making it automatic is really important too. One thing you can do actually in OpenGL that's like really super cool is define your UI in meters, which sounds stupid, but trust me, don't ever do. Like I've been on projects where people like, oh, maybe we want a little bit more, precision or whatever. Let's use decimeters or something. Exactly.
And it just screws up your physics system. Don't ever use that. But define your UI in meters, and then just have a matrix that scales from meters to screen units.
Yeah, and you'll definitely have to test this on a wide variety of physical screen sizes, but it's much, much easier than actually trying to come up with lots and lots of individual layouts to handle every single set of every single combination of pixel
and I'm not
density.
going to lie to you, this isn't easy. There is no simple thing that you can do, especially if you're dealing with different aspect ratios. But it will be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, the key thing, if you're trying to make the HUD look super attractive and perfect, it's definitely a bunch of work.
Oh yeah, you know what? Your artists are going to do, I'll tell you exactly what they're going to say. They're going to be like, we have to be pixel perfect.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's no good. And that actually is, I said I would never swear on this show. It is not true.
Very good. That was well. I knew. I heard it coming, and I heard yeah, exactly.
But let me tell you why it's not true. So that was extremely true back when we were working with NTSC TVs or 480p, or even a really high resolution on a big screen.
But today everything is bilinear filtered. At least you
well,
get that.
Not only that, but also we're talking about these really, really dense displays. Now, okay, fine. If you're supporting some random old thing that has a very low density display, you might want to think about this really carefully.
Here's an example. Let's take a look at Nexus 7. Nexus 7.
You just can't tell.
At Nexus 7, all the icons you see here for every single app are actually being scaled down. We did not actually come up with new icons for every single app at this pixel density.
Right, because this is a 213 DPI, and we scaled from, 250 or something, or 220?
Yeah, and it's 240.
240, right.
Yeah, and so we're scaling down a small fraction. Honestly, on this high of a pixel density display, you don't even notice it most of the time. You can actually go and create icons at 213 DPI if you want to, but we looked at it and we said it's just not worth it. And so I think that says a lot about scaling down. If you're, even, and again, icons are the worst thing you can scale typically because they're really, really information dense. Except for text. But even icons, a lot of icons contain text, and a lot of icons contain line art and details that you would normally think, oh, this shouldn't scale.
Don't
the reality. Yeah, the reality is that, and actually, let's take one last look at the tablet. I wanted to look at the icons today.
We are 5 minutes over time, and producer Reto is like packing up his stuff and ready to go.
So just one thing, out of all these icons, there are 2 icons that actually I think are reasonable Android icons. That is the tractor digger icon, believe it or not, and the GTA icon.
Yeah,
every single one of those
looks like it's been maybe lifted from somebody else's design.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Let's try to make things. Every one of those looks the same. It's hard to actually differentiate the content of all those other ones, but Tractor Digger and GTA are really, really easy to differentiate.
Also, I'm just going to say, Asphalt 7, the game left icon looks like a 6. It looks a lot like a 6. It looks like Asphalt 7 6. I'm just saying. All right.
So let's
go ahead and
next. Everyone make sure to vote next week. That's what I want.
Yeah. So next week's apps are
sports because it's the Olympics. Exactly.
It will have been the Olympics.
Yes.
So we're going to look at sports games next week. Now, if you don't know how this works, you go to our page at developers.google.com/live, which is not down in the corner because this is the wrong title, but it will be. Or the link will always be in the event that we put on our Google Plus page at that link, developer.android.com/plus. Go there, and there is at the very bottom. Scroll down to the bottom. Don't ignore the big black video thing that doesn't have anything in it because there is no video yet. Ignore that. Scroll down. Scroll down further. Then at the bottom of the page, there's a moderator link. It's actually not a link. It's actually embedded because the people that did it are like really cool web people. It's embedded in the page, and you can suggest new apps or new games.
You can flip to the tablet if you want to see what this
really like it.
What this looks like.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I put this up here on our tablet. You can actually go. You can see everything we've looked at. You can see we now are looking at sports games for next time. And right now we already have our first suggestions, some of which don't look like sports games.
Exactly. So hi, when do you plan to review puzzle game? Not next week, so let's do that somewhere else.
Yes.
This will be marked as inappropriate. Let's flag that as inappropriate. But thanks, because we do love puzzle games. At some point, it'll happen. Just stay tuned. Just keep watching the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So stay tuned.
If you don't watch the show every week, how are you going to know?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So definitely continue to nominate, continue to vote. We're really excited about a lot of what we saw this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing some great sports games.
Absolutely.
And golf is a sport. So if you want to, as an example, but we're thinking about things. I want most things that are a lot of Olympic sports too. If there's something good that we've missed, it doesn't have to be Summer Olympics.
Yeah.
It could be.
There's a great dressage app out there. I want to see it. But the other thing that I want to remind you is our goal here is to help developers make better games. So we may not always review the most popular games. We may not always be kind to some games, but our goal is to at least help you understand how a game could be better. Now, sometimes we don't accomplish that because the game is so great to begin with, Radiant Defense, but in general, if we're critical of a game, it's because we think it's decent but could be better. And for that reason, actually, our colleague Reto has renamed his show the Friday App Clinic. We may do something similar. I don't know. Leave a comment on our G Plus page.
Yeah, let us know. Exactly.
Okay, we got to get out of here.
We're way over time. Yeah, we started late though, so it's we can be a little over.
Yeah. So thanks once again to our producer Reto Meyer, our engineer Daniel Pham, and we will see you next week.
Cheers.